One of the most formative experiences of my career was working in an inpatient psychiatric hospital on an adolescent unit. And it was there that I met Sheila. That's how I refer to her. She was 16 years old and disclosed to her school counselor that she'd been sexually abused by her father. And the school counselor did all the things a school counselor is supposed to do. She called the abuse hotline, an investigation ensued. The father was removed from the home. He denied the allegations, but the allegations were founded. And it was at this point in time that the mother becomes unglued and says to Sheila, "You're tearing the family apart." Sheila threatened to commit suicide, and that's what led to her being hospitalized. I did the first family session with Sheila and her mother about 2 to 3 days after she was admitted. And I'm meeting with the mom individually, and I said, what your daughter needs most right now is support. And mom's nodding her head in agreement. I'm like, all right, we're aligned. And I bring Sheila in, and Sheila goes and sits on the sofa in the family conference room, and mom doesn't go sit next to Sheila. She comes to a chair actually closer to me, turns to Sheila and says, as a Christian, you have to forgive him. And I don't even reflect on that statement. I just turned to mom and I said, wouldn't that be convenient for you? And mom looks at me and she's seething. And I'm like, well, then you don't have to choose between your daughter's disclosure and your husband's denial. If she forgives him, it all gets swept under the rug, doesn't it? So that family session doesn't go really well. And Sheila's not going home to her mom. Dad's going to prison. And I'm left with this question of, as a Christian, you have to forgive him. What does that even mean? I wasn't really sure. I'm not Christian, I'm Jewish. Yeah. And I really don't find out for about 5 more years. You see, I go and I earn my PhD and I move my family to our first academic position in Texas, and we join a new synagogue. And I'm sitting in this study group in the synagogue, and I'm introduced to the 3 types of forgiveness in Judaism, which aligned really nicely with the writings of a Rabbi David Blumenthal out of Emory University, who talks about the Jewish conceptualization of forgiveness. There's kapara, spiritual forgiveness, the forgiveness that only God can give, like when you break a vow or an oath. And then there was silicha, restitutional forgiveness. I borrowed your lawnmower, I broke your lawnmower, I repaired your lawnmower, we're good. And then there was mechila, which translates to the wiping away of debt. Because sometimes you can't make restitution. I didn't break your lawnmower, I totaled your car. Well, what about things that happen to us that can't possibly be undone? Like slander, neglect, or abuse. Once they're done, they can't be undone. And this idea of wiping away debt, I thought was really powerful, and I immediately thought of Sheila. But how do we get there? So I started to do some reading from pioneers in the area of forgiveness. There was Robert Enright out of the University of Wisconsin who ran a forgiveness institute. And there was Everett Worthington out of Virginia Commonwealth University who developed the REACH model of forgiveness. And in each of their models, they tended to emphasize interpersonal forgiveness, like that forgiveness between 2 people when one harms another. But I thought, what about this concept of mechila? And I wanted to look into how forgiveness can be either interpersonal, renegotiating the relationship with someone, or intrapersonal, wiping away the debt, being able to say that what's owed to me I'm not going to get, and you don't owe me anything anymore. I thought that was powerful, and so I developed 4 phases to a forgiveness model. The first phase was collaborative exploration, where we explore our feelings towards someone who has caused us harm. Now, why is that important? And why must it be collaborative? Have you ever had a pain that hurts so much you can't even talk about it? But what inevitably happens? You do. Maybe you talk about it to a counselor, a friend, a mentor, or a family member. We heal through our relationships by making the unmentionable mentionable. And from there, we can process the role of reconciliation. Sometimes reconciliation isn't beneficial. Sometimes it's dangerous to try to reconcile with the person who caused us harm. So we need to be able to go it alone. Reconciliation can also be beneficial, especially if the offender has expressed remorse and the intent to change. Like Darth Vader. Spoiler alert, really bad guy, kills baby Jedi, destroys planets. But then he sees, I wish I was making this up, his son is being, harmed by lightning coming out of an emperor's fingertips. And Darth Vader is going to say, nope, not today. Picks up the emperor, conveniently throws him into a nuclear furnace-like thing. Goodbye to the emperor. Darth Vader is redeemed. He takes off his helmet of evil, looks at his son with his own eyes, and becomes a force ghost, whatever that is. And we see this reconciled relationship. Of course, not every heroic journey ends that way. Voldemort was bad too. Not sorry at all. But we don't get the feeling that Harry Potter is going to be this wounded figure for the rest of his life. He finds love, he finds his own family, even if somebody doesn't demonstrate remorse or change. And so our outcomes can go in 2 directions. We can renegotiate our relationships, or we can experience mechila, the forgiveness of debt. When I started presenting on this model, I thought, I wonder if we could find a way to get some evidence for it. So I developed the Forgiveness Reconciliation Inventory. Some of y'all probably just took it. And you'll notice it's aligned with the Forgiveness Reconciliation Model, the 4 phases. So, when you were asked, regarding the person who harmed me, I feel, those items were aligned with collaborative exploration. And when you were asked, reestablishing a relationship with the person who harmed me, that was the role of reconciliation. The person who harmed me are they remorseful? Did they change? And then finally, in the future, my relationship with this person who harmed me is likely to be, what's our outcome? Are we going to renegotiate the relationship, or is it going to be more of an intrapersonal process? So as you can see, we have a choice here. And what I wanted to do was to collect data. We surveyed lay people, individuals in counseling, individuals in recovery, women in domestic abuse shelters. We looked at minoritized populations, looking at the relationship between trauma, forgiveness, and well-being among African Americans. And what we found was that we had a robust model, that regardless of the population, how one felt about the person who harmed them, whether they had positive feelings or negative feelings, would predict the outcome, whether they were going to renegotiate the relationship or not, or seek a more intrapersonal process. And the role of reconciliation, whether or not it was beneficial, And the remorse and change of the offender appeared to influence this decision. If you took the survey, you got 4 scores. 4 scores for each of the scales on collaborative exploration, role of reconciliation, remorse and change of the offender, and the outcome. Higher scores were attributed to more positive attributes. Lower scores were attributed to more negative attributes. And so from here, 2 polarities, 4 scales, you have 16 possible profiles. And what I found is that in going through both hearing someone's story and allowing them to hear themselves, and then allowing them to kind of see where they're at, get a visual representation of where they were in the process, they found validation in their journey. Let's look at some profiles. Everything is awesome. I have positive feelings towards the person who harmed me. I believe reconciliation is beneficial. The person seems remorseful and is committed to change. I think we can heal this relationship. This is successful couples counseling. Well, this could be you. Maybe it's your best friend. You know, I really like this person. They're not really healthy for me. They're not going to change. Let's go out again. This is toxic, but I like it. So we see this sometimes. It can be dangerous. It can be that person who seems to go from dysfunctional relationship to dysfunctional relationship. And then, of course, we have the opposite of everything is awesome. You know, no, I don't like this person. Reconciliation is not beneficial. This person's not going to change. I am out of here. Some people think this is a bad profile, but I actually think this is a rather healthy one. It's pretty strong. It's nice to know when to set limits, when to set boundaries. But one of the problems is that when you experience this profile, very often you're angry. So let's talk about anger. Anger is powerful. It can promote positive change when we're angry. But anger is also a secondary emotion to fear. When someone tells me they're angry, I'm often thinking, what are you afraid of? And they're like, I'm not afraid of anything. I am angry. Well, if we remove that anger, you're probably vulnerable. Think about something you're angry about. And what if I told you, when you wake up each morning, spend the first 20 minutes of your morning brooding about what your anger is all about, and then get on with your day. Well, that doesn't sound like a very good suggestion, does it? It'd be a pretty lousy way to start your day, because anger is a burden. But when we remove that burden of anger, we do become vulnerable. And that's not comfortable either. So what do we do? When I think about Sheila's not going to be able to repair the relationships. She didn't get the love and the safety that she deserved. She needed to come to the conclusion that what I wanted, I'm not going to get. And when she releases this debt, you don't owe me anything anymore. And if you did, you can't give it. I no longer hold you responsible for this negative energy. And I'm able to move on. I don't have any more ill will towards you. In this respect, Sheila makes a heroic journey. And so can we. We can repair the relationships where we feel harmed. And when we can't, We can relinquish our feelings of ill will that go along with forgiving the debt that we held someone to. Thank you.